News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. The U.S. and Iran have exchanged fire. The U.S. carrying out airstrikes on Iranian oil tankers and Iran criticizing the U.S. for violating the ceasefire agreement and seizing a tanker in the Gulf of Oman. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall.
The U.S. military did confirm overnight that it hit Iranian military targets in retaliation for Iran going after U.S. naval vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. The threat from President Trump that the U.S. could resume military operations if Iran does not come to the table in a more meaningful way.
Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. expects Iran to respond to President Trump's latest proposal to end the war imminently.
We're expecting a response from them today at some point. We have not received that yet, as you know, in the last hour, but perhaps that will come.
Iran has still given no indication whether it will accept Trump's plan, which proposes that the Islamic Republic reopen the Strait of Hormuz and the U.S. end a blockade on Iranian ports over the next month. The two sides will still need to negotiate a deal over Iran's nuclear program. Oil market watchers are increasingly concerned that the war in the Middle East will end up crushing demand. Stockpiles around the world are dwindling, which could lead to a longer period of elevated prices and government restrictions aimed at preventing shortages. Europe is already struggling to find supplies of jet fuel. In the U.S., retail gasoline prices are near their highest in nearly 4 years, with the nation's summer driving season set to begin with the May 25th Memorial Day holiday. WTI now topping $95.50 a barrel, and Brent crude more than $101 a barrel. The Virginia Supreme Court has blocked state officials from using a new congressional map. Voters approved that map, which was poised to help Democrats gain seats in the U.S. House. Bloomberg government senior elections reporter Greg Giroux says this all started in Texas.
The Republican government there, at the urging of President Trump, decided to enact new GOP favoring lines in an effort to help defend their very shaky House majority. Democrats counterattacked, notably in California, but also in Virginia, where, as I noted, the Democrats had hoped for a 4-seat gain in Virginia. That has now been effectively wiped out.
Bloomberg's Greg Giroux. The state Supreme Court said the legislature's process for pursuing the new map violated Virginia's constitution. Democratic state officials could ask the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene on an emergency basis. Hackers briefly took down an online portal used by thousands of colleges around the world, disrupting services at institutions from Harvard to Princeton. Instructure, which runs Canvas, says it was forced to suspend the portal after a May 1st infiltration by a criminal threat actor that exploited a vulnerability in a specific account for teachers. The company has restored much of the service now. It has suspended the teacher accounts for now. America's employers delivered a surprising 115,000 new jobs last month, despite an economic shock from the Iran war. Hiring was better than the 65,000 forecasters had expected. It did decelerate from the 185,000 jobs created in March. Signs of labor market strength drove stocks higher, bolstering speculation that the U.S. economy is resilient in the face of the energy shock triggered by the Iran war. We check those markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.8%, NASDAQ up 1.4%, and the Dow up 0.1%. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.36% and the 2-year yield at 3.89%. A federal trade court declared President Trump's 10% global tariffs unlawful, granting a request by small businesses in mostly Democratic-led states to invalidate the tariffs. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett says the Trump administration is now studying all options.
But we have a backup plan that is going to make sure that the president's trade policy is, made a reality very, very shortly.
National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett on Bloomberg Radio and Television. Consumer sentiment fell to a fresh record low over concerns about the impact of inflation on personal finances and buying conditions. The latest University of Michigan Sentiment Index decreased to 48.2. That's down from 49.8 last month. Survey Director Joanne Shu tells Bloomberg a third of consumers surveyed mentioned high gas prices.
Consumers are very loud and clear that the top factor that's been on their minds for several years has been the cost of living and the burden of high prices. And with the surge in gas prices just in the last couple of weeks, consumers continue to be very, very frustrated.
Consumers' perceptions of their current financial situation slid to the lowest level since 2009, and buying conditions dropped to a 5-month low. The Pentagon has begun releasing new files on UFOs, saying members of the public can draw their own conclusions on unidentified anomalous phenomena. Besides the Pentagon, the efforts being led led by the White House, the Director of National Intelligence, the Energy Department, NASA, and the FBI. The Pentagon says additional documents will be released on a rolling basis. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.